Okay, let's go. Is everybody in as much as they can be in? I think we are. Okay, we have a lot of people in the hallway, but I think there's nothing we can do about that at this point. Okay, great. Hello. I'm going to have you guys quiet down. It's probably nice for everyone to be together. Haven't been together in person in a long time, so it's nice to see each other. So it is August 22nd, 6 o'clock, 6:01. Welcome to a special meeting of the City Council of Palos Verdes Estates for the purpose of receiving an update on the Palos Verdes Drive West Via Corta intersection improvements. And I'd like to call this meeting to order, and only because I never get to do it on a virtual meeting. There you go. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Terrific. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Murdoch.
Here.
Councilmember Kemp.
I'm not hearing you.
Councilmember McGowan.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Roos.
Happy to be back in the flesh here.
Mayor Lozzi.
Here. Yes, I will point out this is Mayor Pro Tem Roos and Councilmember Murdoch's first in-person meeting, which is just such a crazy thing. That's so crazy. So good. Yay, we're back together. Okay. Before we get started, I want to note a correction to the posted agenda. Public comment will take place after the staff presentation, not before, as it was printed. Before we jump into this evening's presentation, I want to welcome everyone and thank you for participating in tonight's meeting. As I said, first time back in 2.5 years, so it's so nice to be here. Actually, I am going to start, and it's great because we have so many people here. I'm going to start with a quick and fun announcement. So during the past few city council meetings, I have been updating you all on the successes of our very own Palos Verdes Little League 10 and under all-star team, and I am happy to report that the team won its state championship on August 1st. Yay! So, which is super exciting. And yeah, it's super fun. And to celebrate, we are going to be having a little parade this Saturday, August 27th at 1 o'clock. Anybody? Okay, look on the website for the time. 11? Okay. I wrote in my comments XXX underline highlight. Obviously, note to self to go find the time, but okay. And I think the parade starts Malaga Cove Plaza, makes its way to Valmonte School, and ends with a barbecue at the baseball field. So, I mean, come to I think they're giving away hot dogs out there, so be a great day to go out to the baseball field. But certainly look online and see the parade route and come out and cheer for the team. And congratulations to them. And I know they're all so excited, and all the families are so excited. And so that's what makes summer great. Okay, on to tonight's agenda. So the purpose of tonight's special meeting is to receive a project update from staff on the proposed traffic solution for the PV Drive West Via Corta intersection. The city has had a long-standing problem in this intersection, and we need to find the best, safest, and most efficient solution to that problem. What that solution is the crux of the issue, and certainly a topic for debate. The congestion in this intersection has steadily increased over time. It is not just a weekday morning and evening problem anymore, but rather it occurs at different times of day, different days of the week. The growing congestion is the reason our prior city council in 2017 requested and received a traffic presentation from the police department, and then commissioned a feasibility study to develop potential solutions to the traffic congestion along the entire PV Drive West corridor, which was presented to the City Council at a public meeting in December of 2019. So residents should know that this council has received a tremendous amount of correspondence about this project, which has been both in support of the project and opposed to it. And we've received plenty of letters that supported a traffic signal. So for me, and I'm sure for my colleagues on the council, I pride myself on responding to every email I receive, but the volume on this one was so big I couldn't respond to every single one. And so for me, I apologize for that. But know that receiving your input is a valuable and important part of the public process. We appreciate all of the feedback we have received, both before the roundabout option moved to the design phase back in March, and also everything that's been received since that time. This council cares a lot about community feedback and the public process. Excuse me?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
This council cares a lot about the community feedback and public process. And this topic, they tells us there are still a lot of questions out there, and we need to make sure we understand those before moving forward. The feedback also tells us some residents have questions about the public process and community engagement today, especially given what a major change to the community this decision is. While the goal of tonight's meeting is to get a project update, staff will spend time on the history and evolution of the project, a lot of time recapping the current roundabout design. Tonight's presentation and discussion should answer many, if not most, of the community's questions, and certainly that's the goal. And then council will determine what the appropriate next steps should be. And if we need to pause and take another look at the data and the analysis and rethink the solution, that's what we'll consider. Because as I said, this is a major change to the community, and it's important to get it right. But it is a problem that needs a long-term solution. Tonight's process, so just to set the stage for tonight's process, following the staff presentation, council will have the chance to ask some clarifying questions of staff and the engineering team. And I should say that Eric Spangler from our engineering team and Tim Jonason also from our HR Green team, they're here, and they've been part of the project from the beginning, so thank you for being here. And then we will take public comment, and then back to council for discussion. So I have the ends of the pews. You should see holders for the cards if you wanted to speak. So you can pass those up. You can head those towards Chief Best, and he'll kind of grab them and send them this way. So if you want to speak, certainly fill out a card so we know. So a word about public comment. Please stay on topic. By law and the Brown Act, public comment is limited to this agenda item, and we do have to abide by those rules. Please be mindful of the number of people that want to speak tonight. So it would be helpful if you don't repeat points that have already been made and maybe summarize your remarks as best you can. I didn't want to cut the traditional 3 minutes per person because I want everybody to have time to say what they'd like to say, but do keep the time in mind. And I do have to cut you off at 3 minutes, sorry. And lastly, please be courteous and respectful this whole evening to each other. Remember, we are all on the same team here. And it's not easy for people to get up in front of a large group to speak, and there will be differing points of view, and they are all equally important, and they all deserve our respect. So with that, I am going to, she moved out of her chair. I'm going to move over to the Public Works Director, Anastasia Symes, actually, Mark, did you have any opening comments before it goes to Anastasia? Okay, so Anastasia Symes is our Public Works Director. If you haven't met her, she does a terrific job for us, and I'm going to turn it to her, and you go ahead and fire away.
Council? Oh, there we go. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. My name is Anastasia Symes. I'm the Public Works Director, and I will be presenting the project update on the Palos Verdes Drive West Corridor project. To acquaint everyone with the project, this slide is pulled from the 2019 feasibility study. Okay. Can you hear me better this way? I have to leave.
Try it now.
Is yours on? This one? This one's not on. There. There we go. Okay. Do that one. Is this one better? Sounds better. Okay. Okay, so this slide, to acquaint everyone with the project, this slide is from the 2019 feasibility study. And at the time, the entire corridor along Palos Verdes Drive West at the Triangle and at Via Corta was being evaluated for how to address the large footprints, the congestions and delays that were being experienced. At that time in 2019, the decision was made to bifurcate the project and split the two intersections into two separate projects. So this was two phases, with the first phase being the Via Corta intersection, which is what we're here to discuss tonight. The issues at both intersections are similar, but as I mentioned, we are focusing on the Via Corta and Palos Verdes Drive West intersection and the congestions, the delays, the five-way intersection, and the constraints associated with that. The project objectives from the 2019 feasibility study are summarized here. Again, it's similar for both the Triangle and Via Corta intersections along Palos Verdes Drive West, but tonight we're focusing on the concerns related to the Via Corta intersection as phase one of the project. So the project objectives were to improve the circulation and to eliminate cut-through traffic from adjacent areas such as through the Upper Barrel, from Via Campesina, Via Montemar, Via Anita, and how this then impacts the surrounding residents and surrounding businesses at Malaga Cove Plaza, and trying to reduce the congestion and delays at this intersection. This is a photo of the intersection of Palos Verdes Drive West and Via Corta. And as you can see, we have the long crosswalks going across the street in each direction, the five-way intersection, and this is a situation that was evaluated or is being evaluated. There have been public meetings about this intersection and the concerns with the congestion since 2017. As the mayor mentioned, this was first brought to the Traffic Safety Committee in November of 2017 by the police department in relation to an analysis that was done for lots of congestion and traffic building up at the intersections. An engineering analysis was then done and was brought to the Traffic Safety Committee and ultimately to the City Council. That led to the feasibility study in 2019 and to hiring Michael Baker Associates for that feasibility study. Since then, there's been additional joint meetings, public meetings, outreach with the police department and fire department, and with the Palos Verdes Homes Association. Bring us to the 2019 feasibility study. The results of the feasibility study for the Palos Verdes Drive West and Via Corta intersection were 4 options. The first was the no build, 2 is the installation of the traffic signal, and then there was the option of a roundabout, either a single lane or a 2-lane roundabout. With the 2019 feasibility study, it was determined that a single lane roundabout could not handle the traffic flow at the Palos Verdes Drive West and Via Corta intersection. So at this time was when it was reduced to 3 options with the no build, the traffic signal, or the 2-lane roundabout. After the feasibility study was completed, the staff moved forward with reaching out to the Los Angeles County Metro about funding, also worked on or evaluated the options, looking into research, like I mentioned, with the police department, the fire department, and evaluating all the options that were present. In 2020, with COVID, people were looking for open space and trails, and the LA Times advertised the Palos Verdes Estates Bluffs as a great place to be outdoors. So there was additional traffic that came through the area as well, and the need for the manual traffic control with the police department, ultimately with the Black Knights, continued to present. In March 2022, the selection of the preferred design alternative was made. If you went back and watched the March City Council meeting, you'll see how the City Council approached the selection of the preferred design alternative. The no-build option was not advanced by a City Council member, so the remaining options were the traffic signal and the 2-lane roundabout. Both options solved the challenges of the intersection, but the roundabout was deemed to better maintain the aesthetic of the area. Elements. So what I have shown here is the 2-lane roundabout design. I want to walk through some elements that are in the design that I think is important for everyone to be aware of. This is a zoomed out version right now of the intersection. This is Palos Verdes Drive West going westward this way. And so this is the intersection of Via Corta. This is Via Corta with the roundabout design here in the center. So Palos Verdes Drive, this would be on the eastern side of the intersection, west. This is north Via Corta. This is Via del Puente. And this is the south side of Via Corta with Malaga Cove Plaza over here. On Palos Verdes Drive West, there's 2 lanes of traffic in each direction on either side of the roundabout. On Via Corta, there's 1 lane for each direction of traffic on both the north and south sides of the intersection. I will zoom into this part of the roundabout. So, oops. Let me do it by laser pointer. The central part where you can see the circle in the middle, the green circle is the central part of the roundabout that is currently still being designed of how it would look if it would be flush with the roadway surface, if there would be a small wall, whether there is a specimen tree in the middle, or just the general design that is still currently underway, but that's the location of it. The brown circle that is around it is what is called the truck apron. That area is flush with the roadway. That is an area where, even though normal travel will be through the lanes that are shown in gray around the in the central part of the roundabout, that truck apron would be used by larger vehicles like a fire truck, where they can drive on that. It's a drivable surface to make those turns. So there are 2 lanes going around the roundabout, and then you can see the red that is shown on your screen. It's black on the side with the city council members, is the lines for the crosswalks. And there's one currently shown in the design for each side of the intersection. The crosswalks currently go from street corner to street corner. And in this design, there is a refuge area, which is in the median of the street crossing. So you go from the street corner to the area where the median is. It's an area that is it's a refuge, but it's an area that's large enough for pedestrians to stand and stop and wait for cars to stop that are going in the opposite direction, and then be able to cross the street again. So this would decrease the length that pedestrians are walking across the street.
Hey, you know what? This is a big crowd, and somebody has worked really hard on this presentation, so maybe keep your comments lower and to yourselves until we get to the public comment part, because that's really not respectful, and I know we can be more polite than that.
So for the crosswalks, with having the refuge locations, then it decreases the amount of time that a pedestrian is in the roadway and is able to then stop and cross the second half of the street. This decreases, like for example, on Palos Verdes Drive West on the eastern side of the intersection, it decreases the length of the crossing for the pedestrian from about 94 feet to something more similar to about 27 feet in the current design for each segment. So 2 lengths of 27 feet. On this exhibit, you can also see that towards the left-hand side on the western part of Palos Verdes Drive west of the intersection, there is a left turn lane that goes into where the upper barrel is. So vehicles traveling westbound would still be able to turn left and be able to have access to the upper barrel roadway. And vehicles from upper barrel are able to turn right onto Palos Verdes Drive west in order to go eastbound. On this exhibit, the green area is shown north of the intersection and south of the intersection. That is green space where there will be planted areas, trees, vegetation. And the location on the northern side of the Palos Verdes Drive West is actually increasing from what it is today and is extending into what is currently the roadway. On the southern side, the southwest corner is of the roundabout in the circular area with the roadway. You can kind of see it on the screen, is extending into the corner of where the sidewalk and the park area, the right-of-way is today. And then on the southeast corner, the crosswalk is in kind of where you see the gray and green corner here. It extends a little bit into the existing orientation of Via Corta, but then most of the park is still intact. But as I mentioned, on the north side, that's actually the green area and sidewalk are extending south, so there's more greenery on that side than what's currently over there today. I'm going to zoom out and zoom into this side. So this area right here is where the city hall, the fire department, that driveway that you can see inner barrel. For emergency services, they are, where their driveways are is labeled on the exhibit. So currently with the fire department or the police department, they're able to still exit straight out and onto Palos Verdes Drive where they currently are. It shows a right turn only onto Palos Verdes Drive West, and that would be for typical vehicles. However, emergency vehicles would be able to turn left onto Palos Verdes Drive West as well, because that little triangular space in the center of Palos Verdes Drive West that's kind of a brownish color, that is a median mountable curb. So similar to how I described the circular truck apron, that is something that the fire engine or police vehicles could drive over in order to go westbound on Palos Verdes Drive West. And there would be something alerting other drivers that are on Palos Verdes Drive West about the emergency vehicle, such as like a flashing light that the emergency service vehicles can turn on. There's also a brown rectangle right across from where it says PD driveway on the exhibit. That is surrounded by the green space. So that is another area that would be a mountable curb for emergency vehicles to easily go eastbound onto Palos Verdes Drive West and into the roundabout instead of having to go around the greenery. Okay. And then in the tan kind of colored area that is on Via del Puente, that's an area where I can't do it when it's zoomed in. So I can show you, not sure what happened. Not sure what happened to this. There we go. Okay. So the laser pointer only works when you zoom out. So this is the Via del Puente area. It's shown in tan. These areas that are all shown in tan are areas that, along with the areas that are gray, that are included in the project to receive asphalt work. So they would have new pavement being placed here. This is an area that's called a mill and overlay, is how it's labeled on the exhibits that is shown here and what you've probably seen to date. And this would include a change to the parking stalls and the direction of traffic, with only this exit here is only to go westbound. Let's see. That's everything else. So as part of this two-lane roundabout layout, there are impacts to the parking, as I just touched on. We'll get into that a little bit more later, and on the landscaping, especially with the trees. This slide shows the tree impacts from the proposed roundabout layout. The circles, which are black on this side, there's some here, a few here, and then these are all the red circles. Those red circles are trees that are identified for removal as part of the roundabout project. There are also trees shown on this exhibit that would be added as part of the project. So all of the trees along here would be added. There's a number of them along here, and then some on both sides. The net increase of the trees would be 6 to 7 trees after the project, depending on if a specimen tree is added here in the center of the roundabout. So it'd be a net increase of 6 trees after the project without a tree here in the center, and then 7 if a tree is added in the center of the roundabout. There are also a number of trees that are being maintained in place, such as over here and along the Malaga Cove Plaza and some up this way. There are some that have been, there are some trees, I'll wait for it to come back up, but there we go. So there are, with the tree removals, there are still aspects of that being evaluated and considered. This tree over here, which is number 1 in the documents that you've seen in previous presentations, that one is being considered if there's a way to shift the exit of this parking area so that we could maintain this tree and keep it instead of having to remove it. Same with the tree that's labeled number 6 over here, right at this intersection on Via Corta. If we can, with the layout, we've been coordinating with the urban forester to see if it's possible to keep that tree in place, and then we wouldn't have this new tree that's shown here. So the design is still being considered and reviewed for how to save as many trees as possible while also making sure that we have a safe environment. We don't have a safety hazard by leaving a tree with cut roots. But as I mentioned, there is a net increase in trees. So before the project, there are 51 trees in this general area. After the project, it would be 57 to 58 trees, depending on the tree in the center of the roundabout, whether a tree is placed there.
Are they big trees or little trees?
For, as I mentioned, the parking mitigation, we have multiple areas that we're looking at throughout the city that are shown on this exhibit for places where we can increase the parking. Because the total removals required for this project is 37 parking spaces. From all of these areas that are shown on the exhibit, we've identified the potential parking mitigation of 62 spaces, with 39 outside of the current project scope. So the parking mitigation is something that I'll show the schedule for a little bit later, but something that we are looking at having other separate meetings to go over the parking mitigation options. To summarize some of these key items, we have this table here with the number of trees, with the current condition and the anticipated final count, the lengths of the crossings that I had mentioned, where what it is currently from corner to corner versus with the median, the refuge locations, and the parking impacts that I just mentioned. Since we're at the 35% design, there's still a number of items that are in progress and that we're still evaluating. The parking mitigation options, we have lighting to consider with the crosswalks and the roadway and the roundabout. The specimen tree at the center of the roundabout and the design of it, if there's a wall, if it's flush with the roadway surface, and the materials that we want to use for like a wall in the roundabout or that truck apron. So those are still coming and being evaluated when coming up with options that we can then present for consideration. The project funding is outlined here with the preliminary engineering and design phase and the construction phase. There's two columns. One is the city funded, which the city has funded the feasibility study, and the second part of the preliminary engineering and design that we're in now with the environmental documents and the plan specifications and estimate. This grant-funded column is associated with the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority, which we also call Metro. The grant funding we currently have is the $677,000 shown here. That is part of a funding agreement that was executed in November of 2021. It's Measure M funds, which is from a half-cent sales tax measure that was voted on in 2016 and became effective in July of 2017. So it's money that comes from sales tax that is available to communities in Los Angeles County. And with this project, staff and the design team worked and were able to apply for, and then through the funding agreement, we now have this $677,000 for the preliminary engineering and design work. Earlier this year, the city submitted an application for the construction phase for this $4,840,000 for the construction phase, and it includes inspection, construction management, and the actual construction and design support throughout the construction phase, as well as a construction contingency. It's anticipated that we'll have approval for the grant in September of 2022, followed by a funding agreement amendment. The project schedule was originally outlined in 2019 with the feasibility study, and is shown here in this center column. And then the current status is in the column on the right-hand side, where it shows that we've completed the feasibility study, and we've currently combined these two rows with the project approval and environmental documents and the plan specifications and estimate. So both of those items are in progress and are currently pending the parking mitigation options. The right-of-way acquisition was not anticipated, and construction was originally scheduled to start in July of 2023, and that schedule is still viable with where we're at on the design. The next steps for this project are outlined on these next two slides. The first thing is the parking mitigation that I mentioned. We have parking mitigation drop-in format open houses scheduled for this Thursday and next Monday in person at the library, and virtually via Zoom next Tuesday. The times are outlined here, and we also have that on the flyer that we've posted online as well. And from there in September, we have the two Metro meeting dates associated with the grant funding agreement. September 14th, and then September 22nd for their final board of directors to approve the funding. And then in October, we would be planning to come back to the city council with any comment, with the information that we gather from these parking mitigation drop-in format open houses. The design process will go through finalizing the 35% plans after we know the parking mitigation options that are selected, if any, through the environmental documents, what's known as the 95% plans, and the 100% plans to get to a final design down in March of 2023, and construction by that summer with the advertising and awarding a construction contract. Construction is anticipated to take 12 to 14 months. The best way to stay up to date on the project and to see the history that is available on the city's website is through the city's webpage. I have the link shown here. And I will see if it'll let me. No, of course not. Which I'll show. Okay. It's not going to like.
Give you a second to pull that back up, and if anybody has their cell phones on, maybe silence them. Should have
So
said
this
that.
this is the city project website. We have an overview, the project status. You can see the exhibit that I was sharing earlier, as well as staff reports listed here and a frequently asked questions document. There's additional resources on this webpage with all the videos, and I want to scroll down to the bottom where we have the traffic simulations and the feasibility study available on this webpage. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. And hopefully it'll work. Okay. So the best way to stay up to date with any topics in the city would be to sign up for updates. The link is shown here, and if you ever need it, it's also, you can find it on the website or reach out and ask. But if you sign up here for e-notifications, you will get an email whenever there is important news or a press release that's issued. There's also a new city update that goes out every other week that you would receive, which will include what's going on in the city, key items, updates with this project, meetings that are scheduled, and the update is also available on social media such as the city's Facebook or Twitter. And with that, I'd like to open it up to any questions.
I gotta turn my thing on. Thank you. Nice job making your way through that. Oh, sorry, we're not at that point in the presentation yet. But hang in there. We will get there. So what we're gonna do next is that we'll have council members probably have detailed questions on this, and we'll let them do that, and hopefully that'll address some of the questions you have. I'm going to make another call for cards. If anybody's filled out a card, start to send that forward so I can manage the public comment. You can just pass it forward. So you're welcome. That's fine. Okay, over here. So let's see. Oh.
You're looking at me. I'm itching
I'm not
to
even.
go.
Oh, you want to jump?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Mayor Pro Tem, did you?
I'm happy to go first.
Okay, I'm going to call on the Mayor Pro Tem.
Sure, go ahead.
I have a number of questions. My questions mostly relate to the impact to city character, because I think that is a significant concern for our residents. We've gotten a lot of feedback about that.
1 second. Can you guys hear? Yeah.
I can lean forward.
Yeah.
I provided a couple of slides to Anastasia to depict my questions here. As well, she's loading that up. Let me ask you, because my questions are largely around the signage and the lighting. And let me ask you, and this is direct, I'm sorry, we haven't introduced Mr. Spiegler yet, but Eric is with MBI, which is the engineering firm that has produced everything that Anastasia was presenting. The standards that dictate signs and lighting and things, are those national standards?
Yeah, those are national standards, and also we have to use California Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So there's two guidance standards,
Okay, and
federal
so
and
the more restrictive one
governs.
is the one that governs.
Right.
Okay. This is a roundabout that I found kind of by accident, actually, but it happened to match the configuration of ours insofar as there's this predominant four-way east-west direction, and then there's a two-lane north-south direction, and it was a two-lane roundabout with identical configuration in terms of where you would have to go depending on which lane you were in. So I wanted to talk, the next slide shows each of the approaches to this intersection. This intersection happens to be in Maryland, but that's sort of the basis for my question. So here, this is the approach in each direction, and I studied this and was comparing it to, you had directed us previously to a project you did in Montecito, which is similar. And I was comparing some of the signage that's present on each of these approaches, and I wanted to understand what some of the differences were. So, for example, you can see that they have, in the upper left-hand corner, you can see very close to the camera, that is a keep right sign, according to what I looked up online. That is not present in the Montecito example, and instead they have actually placed further back a sign that's more descriptive, that describes kind of the lanes of the roundabout. I suspect that, I don't know if one is a more recent standard than the other, or what would you expect in our case?
I think it's optional. I think that sign
entirely
right there is optional. Yeah.
This particular sign, the keep right sign, is
the
optional?
keep right sign. So if you have in advance of this an additional warning sign of like a circulating roundabout, warning sign, or a lane designation sign, this could be considered optional.
Could be optional, okay. And it's very difficult to see, at least on this side of the screen, but in the center, in the circle that's in the center of the landscaped area, on each approach, there's one sign that is a chevron pointing to the right, sort of directing traffic to that.
Got it.
And that looks basically the same as what I saw in the Montecito example. In the Montecito example, the background of that sign was white instead of yellow, but otherwise, in that island, there were 4 signs, one for each approach with a chevron pointing to the right. Is that similar to what you would expect?
Yeah, that's a requirement.
That is a requirement, okay.
Yeah.
And then at the crosswalks, the easiest one to see is in the lower right-hand corner. They have the crosswalk sign with the arrow that points to it. In the Montecito example, that is actually present on both sides, but otherwise looks the same. And what would you expect here?
I think it's required on both sides.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll have to research that and get back to you. It's certainly required on the right side, but it is also likely to be required on both sides.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, let's see if you can, the next one. So this is the lights that are present in this project. There are 2 types that they have here. They have a downward-facing light, which is I put on the top, and then they have these other lamps there, which I'm fairly certain are not actually part of this project. I think they're part. There's a little like walkable retail area on the bottom. I think they're just part of that because they're only present on that side. How would the lighting that you expect would be required here compare to what you see here?
Similar. So I would expect 8 lights to be required.
8.
8 total for
This one has 4.
Okay, so there's a couple different ways. There's center median lighting that can come out from the splitter islands and cover both directions of pedestrian crossings.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also 2 pedestals at each crosswalk location, lighting the roadway and the pedestrian crossing from the outside. So that basically the lumens need to be the same under whatever lighting layout schematic that you have. So if you have 8 lights at the intersection at large, basically it has to provide the same illumination for the pedestrian crossings and for the roadway itself. So
So the standard is written in terms of lumens and...
There's a choice on number of lighting, pedestals, but there's no choice on amount of illumination that needs to be provided at the pedestrian crossings and in the circulating roadway.
Okay. I believe that in the Montecito, you guys did that Montecito project.
I was involved in the PAED phase, but my company did.
When was that built?
That was built in, I would say, 2004, 2005.
Okay, so it's not new.
It's not new, it's not old, so it's,
Yeah.
it's, yeah.
Okay. All right, 'cause in
Relatively-
that example, in that example, they too,
Yeah.
they had 4 lights. I mean, I think that the amount of illumination that would be required is highly material to the decision that we would make. So that is a detail that we would want to know long before we were bidding anything on this. So,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you for your
And
answer.
also, yeah, we have engaged the art jury and given them, presented different lighting, standard options for their consideration and recommendation to the city council
Okay.
or to the city public works.
And then we've gotten a lot of correspondence that has suggested that gives a preference for traffic signal versus this configuration. So I put in here, this is the intersection of Calle Mayor and PV Boulevard, which is the first traffic light before you get to this intersection. And I just wanted to make sure, really for the benefit of the public, how many signals are required, and how does the signage and lighting compare to what is currently being considered? So, and it's difficult to see, at least from this side, but there's, I think on the north-south approaches, there are 5 signals facing each direction. Would you expect that to be similar in the predominant flow?
Yes, so what you'll have is 3 signal faces facing, for vehicular signal faces, facing each approach. One on the right, one on the left, and one on the mast arm. Okay, and then you'll also have safety lighting. So safety lighting is required under both the roundabout and the signal option. That's the same requirement.
Okay.
Okay, so then you'll have the additional, so we'll have 3 vehicular signal faces for each approach, plus the 2 pedestrian. So for a total of 5 for each approach. So
Okay.
times 4 is 20.
Okay.
Yeah. And those are LED.
They're LED.
Yeah, so it's a little brighter than the high pressure sodium conventional. Yeah.
The lumens required you said the lighting overall though is the downward facing lighting is the same.
Right. It would be the same for. The intersection configuration is different, so you're lighting different areas of the intersection in the roundabout versus signal. But the safety lighting lumens are the same for signal and roundabout.
Okay. So thinking about this a little bit differently, because you guys created a plan that changed the configuration of the intersection quite a bit, and I'm talking about the signal plan, right? Your signal plan was really a reconfiguration of the intersection to remove the barrel, the 5th leg. So thinking about it more simply, what would be the options for? Let me say this a little differently. If obviously you can't signalize the intersection with 5 legs, or it would be very challenging to do so. So assuming that we could somehow block off the leg that runs in front of City Hall and otherwise keep the configuration of the intersection the same, are there options available to us, whether they qualify for Metro funding or not, that would allow us to use fewer signals facing each approach?
No, so the industry standard intersection control is stop control, or uncontrolled, which we're well past that. Currently all legs are stop controlled. The other intersection controls are grade separation. I don't think we want a new bridge.
No overpass? No.
And then the other intersection control would be roundabout or traffic signal.
Okay.
So we have, and then Anastasia noted in her presentation that we studied a single lane roundabout, and we did a very detailed traffic micro simulation, what's called a VISM software video simulation of a single lane roundabout. And I made our traffic engineers prove to me that will a single lane roundabout work? Can a single circulating lane accommodate the traffic demand of this intersection? And the answer was no.
Okay.
It was a level service F, and it was over 2 minutes of average delay. So single lane, double lane roundabout.
I want to get back to my question about
Okay.
if you didn't expand the roadway, if you didn't think about it completely differently from what was proposed in your signal option, right?
Okay.
Because that's a substantial reconfiguration of the intersection, right?
Okay.
So imagine that you keep the intersection the way it is for the most part, except that you don't let that fifth leg participate. And you're saying that you would expect still the lighting requirements and the number of signals to be similar?
The same, yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Those are my questions.
Can I piggyback on that, please? I'm not sure I understand where the 5 comes from. So I understand there's a light here, and there's a light at the crosswalks. Where are the other 2? Are
Okay,
they the
so-
walk signs?
Yeah, so two would be the pedestrian crossing, right? Those are smaller LED lights, right? Those are the pedestrian level.
Walk, no walk,
Right,
count down?
exactly.
Okay, okay.
And then you have 3 for each approach of the vehicle LED lights. One on the right, one on the left, which are mounted on the poles, and that's a MUTCD requirement. And then on the mast arm, and then above the mast arm or on the mast arm, there's some sort of lighting.
And that doesn't matter whether it's a 1-lane or a 2-lane?
That's correct.
It's the same requirement? Okay.
I believe, I'll have to double check on would the Via Corta single lane approach have any different, I'd have to consult with my traffic engineer and my signal designer on that. But I'm pretty sure that even on a single lane approach, you would need the 2 signal faces on the left and on the right and the mast arm as well.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Mhm.
You were finished, right?
I am.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kemps, you were next.
Thank you. So, by the way, it's awesome to see everybody in person, and I'm in some ways grateful that this is the one that we came back to because, wow, it drew everybody in. Let me throw out some comments. Ordinarily, we'd go to public comment first and then make these comments, but maybe I can help take some air out. Don't, it's cool. Don't clap. Let me take some air out of the room and at least let you feel like you are being heard. So bear with me for a minute. The beauty of local government is we really have the ability to directly collaborate with and respond to our residents. I've done a lot of that in the last few weeks. It's my perception that the community has spoken loudly, and I'm not saying this to get cheers from the room or whatever else. I just think it's time for us to take a step back for a minute, breathe, and recognize some things. So these are my observations, and maybe in your public comment you can acknowledge or not. Number 1 is some residents just want this intersection left alone. Number 2 is some will consider a traffic light, although I think that last dialogue may have changed that opinion. 3, I think most people believe that the process, at least the end of it, was rushed. The 2 public meetings that were held via Zoom and viewed to have been insufficient for engagement for a public works project of this potential size. And then I haven't heard a lot of this, but this is my own perception. I think separating the Via Corta intersection from the triangle and the resulting impact was a mistake. I think those are, whether or not they're legally and officially tied together, that they're close enough that they need to be considered together. And I think they were separated with good intent, but maybe the result is not what we'd want. The other thing that's interesting is when you go back to the origin of this, both solutions were designed with county funding in mind. I don't have to convince anybody that historically the city has had funding challenges. Those have gotten better over the last couple of years, but we still have a long-term financial challenge. And so I get it. Public Works looks at this and says, well, county money's out there. How do we get it funded? And the challenge with county money getting it funded is they require minimum improvement in the intersection. Forget all the technicalities and the improvement in scores. But there's some questions around, well, if we don't want our city to look like that, then do we want the county money at all? And so I get it. I get it. You sure? Give me an address. It's like $5 million. You sure you don't want it? We'll send it to you instead of doing the intersection. So no, seriously though, I think the question is, and this goes back to maybe taking another look at this. What do we want? What do we want to accomplish? Are we willing to put up with, and obviously, I think Malaga Cove, Lanada Bay, Montemalaga, different sections of the city, and those that, commute in or out or go to school or not go to school, probably have some differing opinions about this. Not to dive in too deep, but if you're in Malaga Cove, hell no, don't touch my intersection. If you're in Lanada Bay, you're begging for a solution because you're sick and tired of waiting 30 minutes to go each way. Hold on, I've done it myself. Sometimes. Okay, now we're good. Okay, so I think I'm going to get out of the way for others to speak, and are you clapping because I'm getting out of the way?
Yes.
All right. I think what I'd like to hear out of public comment, and I expect that we're going to hear massive amounts of, we don't want this roundabout. That's great. What I'm interested in hearing myself from my own decision-making process is, A, do you think we have a problem? Everybody that commented a second ago thinks we don't. And B, if we do have a problem, what collaborative thoughts and suggestions do you have about where we go from here? Those are my curious questions for you. I have other questions, some of which, Jim, you dove into. I think I understand the solutions pretty well, and I think I'll stop there.
Perfect, thank you. Councilmember McGowan?
Yeah, I'd like to ask staff a couple of questions. Number one, if we were to pause this process at the moment, and let us hypothetically consider a peer review of what Michael Baker has done, if we were to engage another engineering firm to not only review what Michael Baker has done, but also expand maybe some of their ideas and thoughts, and if we couple that with focus groups of residents, which would be statistically sampled out of the population, so we have a diversity in addressing whether it be school moms and dads or whether it be folks in this room or other interested parties, would we be jeopardizing the potential funding from the county? In other words, if we backtrack a little bit and try to do some more homework, better understand our alternatives, whether it be lights or whether it be a roundabout, I think doing nothing is extremely high risk, and I think that's the reason that we're all in this room tonight as it is. But I'm going to address that to Mark or Anastasia and what your thoughts might be, and could we make that happen?
So if we took a pause or took a step back, the funding currently, if we ended up, my understanding from speaking with David Ledger from the South Bay City's Council of Governments is if we change the design that they would be able to work with us. We could coordinate with Metro and update the funding agreements. But the cost associated with looking into that, we would have to be ready to.
That would be ours, yes.
Figure out what those costs would be and bear those costs as an agency. We don't have cost estimates. We don't have cost estimates yet on doing that kind of research. And then if we ultimately, if the project fell through, then we would be out the future grant money. It goes back to the county. You can't just use it for something else.
But we still have the option either to use the grant funding for, call it option A or option B, or we can refuse to accept it. But we're in the queue right now to receive approximately $4.8 million.
That is correct. And so right now we know the roundabout option and the traffic signal option. If we switch to a traffic signal option, my understanding from the South Bay City's Council of Governments is that we would be able to just go back and discuss it with Metro, not file another application, but then renegotiate the terms of the funding agreement to account for the traffic signal. Ultimately, if we did the redesign or did a change in design to a traffic signal instead of a roundabout, we would be spending more money than what was originally anticipated because of the fact that we've already gone to a 35% design with roundabout. So you'd be starting some of the design work over. If we ultimately needed more for construction, then at that point we would have to apply for additional funding, ask for, do another application like we just did this spring for the construction budget. But they wouldn't have a problem with us changing to a traffic signal and with the 4.8.
I think that helps a great deal, and at least in my thinking, that we may be at a unique opportunity to take a pause and get additional homework done, so to speak, and utilize focus groups or utilize input from the residents before we make a decision to move forward on any option. Excuse me. This is not a popularity contest. I'm trying to lay out the facts and what is the most prudent direction for our community to follow. Because recognizing that doing a peer review is going to have to come out of our city treasury, which is skim at best. But I think spending whatever is required might be the right answer for the community at this point in our time. So with that, I'll pass it back to you, Mayor.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Councilmember Murdoch?
Yes, first off,
She's new at this.
I always remember to unmute on Zoom. Anyway, first off, I really do appreciate all of you that are here, all of you that sent emails. I read every one. This is a really big, controversial topic. We all love our city. We all want to do what's best for it. And so I just appreciate just the involvement, the communication, the information, because there really are a bunch of different opinions out there. And every time I get an email, I learn something, or it makes me think, oh, you know what? That's a really good point. So I do appreciate that. And so my questions are actually predicated on some of the comments that I've heard in the emails, and it comes back to something that Councilmember Kemp said about were we rash or whatnot about separating the system into two parts in our desire to actually to move forward. And what my question is, and this is for you, Eric, or what I guess it's maybe my concerns, is if we proceed with either option, let's start with a roundabout, because that's what we heard about. If we do a roundabout, does that limit or require us to do something at the triangle? And so I'm wondering about if we've kind of committed ourselves to something that we hadn't really thought all the way through.
No. We have designed, or it's not that we're taking credit for it, but whatever the city proceeds with at the phase one, at the Via Corta intersection, does not preclude you from what you can do at the triangle. There will be queuing interactions between the two intersections, as we've presented previously. However, in our analysis of phase one, we've unconstrained the volumes coming into the phase one or the Via Corta intersection from a traffic analysis perspective as a conservative assumption to allow the city to either do nothing or do a signal or a roundabout in the future at any point in the future at the triangle intersection. So it doesn't preclude the city from, it doesn't force the city to do any certain type of improvement at the triangle.
Because one of the questions I've heard frequently from residents, especially residents either who live in Valmonte or who are coming home from work because they've come home, from the 110 through PV Drive North, is if the roundabout is going to enable constant circulation, right? You don't get those pauses from the stops. How do people from the triangle head westbound? And so that's where my question is, have we modeled what that impact is? And that's what gives me some pause around this breaking apart, because I'm not clear on, and I spent time this weekend rereading the feasibility study, and there are certain assumptions and decisions that are made that I don't know if they're still in effect now because you've made some changes, and so that's why it's hard for me to imagine that creating this kind of free flow of traffic is not going to cause problems at the triangle.
Well, okay, so compared to the existing condition, either a signal or a roundabout is going to be reducing queuing out. So it's going to be clearing the queue from the Via Corta intersection out of the triangle, right? So you're going to be unobstructing the triangle intersection more than the existing condition.
Well, for people moving westbound,
Toward
but what about people going eastbound who, are people stopped at the triangle going to be able to head west?
Okay, so it's kind of the same. So we're removing the bottleneck. So there's going to be a steady flow of traffic based on the demand. So you're basically unobstructing an existing bottleneck. So it does release whatever vehicles. It takes out the bottleneck. So it lets the traffic flow. Whatever the traffic demand is will be serviced very smoothly by a roundabout in an unmetered fashion. A signal releases the traffic demand, and it handles the traffic demand very elegantly here, but in a metered fashion. So it still, I would say, has a it will accommodate the existing condition at the triangle intersection. And if you want, we could model that. So just like we got the comment on the west side of the Via Corta intersection about people backing out of their driveway, we actually did. So I think a lot of the public's questions have been already answered, but we just have to present them, or stuff like that. So anyway, so we did.
Excuse me, that's inappropriate. Please don't do that again.
I stand by it. I stand by it.
So we, it's a similar analysis where we assumed an amount of time that someone is going to have to back out of their driveway and go eastbound on PV Drive West, located just west of the intersection, so close to the intersection. And so we counted the number of gaps that would be acceptable for that maneuver in the AM and PM peak hours. So we could there's an engineering way of calculating and answering that question, which we could get to the bottom of that. If you have a specific concern about a specific traffic maneuver at the triangle intersection, we can take a look at that.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I piggyback on that comment? Were you done? Oh, you were. Okay, so is there a scenario where whether it's a roundabout or a light, but where the flow of traffic at Via Corta, I like when you said you pull the bottleneck, but where that is resolved and we don't have to do something else at the triangle? Or is that not likely? That looks like you're not likely faced.
Well, I'm trying to think back to the 2019 feasibility study about the triangle intersection, and there are, I would say, more safety deficiencies at the triangle intersection as compared, because certain maneuvers don't meet driver expectation. So if you drive the triangle intersection for the very first time, there's certain moves where you're not expecting a stop and you get a stop, or there's an uncontrolled move. So
something still needs to be done there, but
probably from a safety perspective, that would be like the engineering recommendation
Okay.
that the city could or could not.
okay,
that
gotcha.
in place, yeah.
Thank you.
May I? Could that simply be resolved by signage, or I mean, we don't have to tear up the whole triangle in order to solve that issue, right?
What you could do is you could implement experimental signing and striping, which would be a change of the existing condition, and monitor the delay and the queuing. But what we could do is just very quickly do a traffic analysis and tell you what's going to happen, and so you don't have to do that experimental. So I'd have to get back to you. I
think the general theme that we're trying to get through is people want to go slow to fast as opposed to fast to slow. I'm not talking about the speed in which the cars are driving either, right? And so I think the general theme is we need to look at how to take and implement incremental change to try and help what some perceive to be a problem at certain times of day, and figure out the most effective way to do that for the least cost possible and the least impact so that the neighborhood's not up in arms. That's the message to you.
Okay. Do other council members, other questions for staff or for the engineering team? If not, I'll move to public comment. Anybody? No? No? Okay. Oh, there's one more back there. Okay. So, thank you. Why, thank you. Okay. So, just by my count here, we have about 30 people or so, looks like maybe about 30, who want to speak. So you're all smart people at 3 minutes apiece. That's a long time, so which is fine. We will stay. We want to hear your comments, but again, I'll just go back over. If you find that your points have been made, maybe summarize a little bit. But absolutely, we want to hear what everybody has to say, and we will do that. I am going to call on someone to speak. You come to the podium. You have your 3 minutes, which can the speaker, is there another side to that clock so the speaker can see the three? Oh, the speaker has to look at this one? Oh, that's for me and that's for the speaker. Okay, so your 3 minutes is up here, so it's going to count down so you'll know when you're out of time. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to call, as I call a speaker, I'll call the next couple speakers so you can kind of start to make your way to the wall over there. And then hopefully we can get sort of a smooth flow going here. And again, I'm just going to again say that remember that all opinions are important and everybody needs to respect all opinions, even if they don't match up with yours. We all need to be open-minded and we have to hear what our neighbors have to say. And that's just polite and it's just respectful. So with that, I have got, start with this, I just made little piles of 10, so I'll go to my first pile here. Roger Gianni, and that's going to be followed by Ned Cook, and then Brian Pressman. Mr. Gianni? Well, let me stick with my, you're, okay. Did we lose Mr. Gianni? Must be present to win. And I don't know how many, are there a lot of people in the hallway still? I mean, is it possible they're not hearing? No? Okay, well, we'll put that right there. Okay, messed up my whole system right off the bat. Okay. Ned Cook? Hello.
I bought my house in the 1970s.
Let's make sure that, yeah, can we check that? Sorry, staff, make sure that's on. And let's just leave it on, I think, probably.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah,
I think if you took a vote of the people here right now, that 90% of them are against the roundabout. And the reason is, I'm a practicing attorney. I go back and forth. I live in PV Drive West. I go back and forth all the time. There is some congestion at certain times, but even when it's backed up, I never have to wait for more than a couple of minutes. And I take, I think it's ridiculous to even consider a roundabout. I've been to Ireland and Scotland on numerous occasions. There's England is full of roundabouts, and it causes all kinds of accidents, causes all kinds of confusion. We get lost on the roundabout all the time when we go, my wife and I go to England and Scotland. And I think if you listen to the community, every neighbor, and they're not all here, every neighbor I've spoken to is totally against the roundabout. That's it.
Sorry, Brian Pressman.
So I'm proud to stand here by that saying that I totally disagree with what that guy just said. And I actually am thankful that the city council has done some research and some thought about how to address a problem. I'm a father. I have two daughters. One's 7 months old. One is 5.5. I work a full-time job, and I'm always coming home and get stuck at that intersection with a crying baby in the back, with groceries in the car. And I'm listening to all these comments, and I must kind of envy my neighbors' lives, because I feel like for them, that's not an issue, sitting in traffic with a crying baby. But for me, it is. And I've done, I'm a executive director of analytics, so I did a little research on traffic safety, and some people call them roundabouts. Where I'm from, they call them rotaries. But, you know, I noticed that the Institute for Highway Safety notes that they're safer, that they promote better traffic flow, that they're better for pedestrians, they produce less pollution. Now, you might not care about that. You might not care about the facts or the data. In my profession, we do. I also note that the Federal Highway Administration is also in favor of them. So again, I'm not a traffic engineer. I don't do this for a living, but from what I can see, it's a good idea, and I thank you for considering it, and I hope that you improve the intersection. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking. So when I said be polite and respectful, I thought it went without saying that hissing at somebody that you don't agree with was a no-no. So please don't do that. Ron Buss, followed by Joan Davidson and Jerry Marcel.
Well, thank you, Ron Buss. Background, I have been here since 1970. We bought in Valmonte in 1975. So we've been here a couple of years. And in 1998, I was asked by City Council to join one other councilman, and we created the Traffic Safety Committee. And I chaired the Traffic Safety Committee for 18 years through 2016. In terms of this particular project, I think the roundabouts are very appropriate. If you look at five-way intersections in there, and I'll give you one example, you could go to Normandy and Anaheim. I'm still working, despite age, I'm still working. My staff is over in Torrance. And if you go to that five-way intersection, it is a nightmare, and forever to get through that point in time, particularly for that fellow that just spoke with the kids in the back seat. In 2010, I recommended to the Traffic Committee that we look towards putting in the roundabouts in both Via Corta as well as the Triangle. However, it went nowhere, and that's fully understandable because in 2010 we were in the middle of absolute nightmare of financial conditions in this country. We were in a recession. So the fact that's up now, I think, is very, very appropriate. My one suggestion is the two circles versus the one in there. If you go over and look at the intersection of PV Drive South, if you're headed down to Seal Beach, you don't have to go any further than Long Beach. Go down PV Drive South, go down Coast Highway South, and at the intersection with Lakewood, they've got the two roundabouts in there, and it is a nightmare. you get, it creates nothing but problems. So my single suggestion to the group, and not take up any more of your time, is to put in the single lane. But I really think it's an excellent way, excellent solution to the traffic that is long going, and I really do not like the signals at all. I think it's unproductive for this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buss. Okay, so I had Joan Davidson and then Jerry Marcel, but I see Jerry lined up in front of in front of Joan, so there we go. Okay, Joan, and then Raj Bhagat will be after Jerry.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I don't think that Micah Baker International understands the history of our Palos Verdes city. I think they've done a terrible job, with all due respect, to answer questions or conveying the imagery needed for the public to understand the roundabout that they've designed. The traffic circle would include 8 or 9 streetlights. They forgot to talk about the red blinking lights on the crosswalks. It's not exactly the historic Malaga Cove Plaza of 1923 designed by Olmsted and Cheney. The history of the plaza traffic issues goes back in time through the news articles. In 1959, the council delayed traffic issues at the Triangle. In 1965, the council was struggling with the plaza parking. In 1999, the council sent out surveys to residents and decided to leave the intersection alone. In 2001, the council accepted $600,000 to create the open space park at the old mobile station at the corner of Via Corta for permanent open space. It was signed off in a contract in perpetuity with the county and resolutions by the council. There was a ceremony with the PV High Band playing, and the council's garden won 3 awards. In 2015, PVE engineer Rydell proposed angled parking in Via Tejon, and the council said, no, we need further study. This isn't working out too well. MBI did not send a survey to the residents. They should have. MBI traffic study was using old traffic data from 2018 and 19. And by the way, the high school will start at 8:30 this year and get out later. So the traffic flow will be totally different, should be studied. If you Google traffic in the peninsula at 3:30 or 5 p.m. any day, there's traffic everywhere along the South Bay. Every arterial is crowded, not just here. MBI blueprints do not show a visualization of the 2-lane roundabout that's sufficient for this community. They don't show the cutaway space. They don't explain those brown lines or going to be cement medians. You can't cross over to get into the Malaga Cove Market. The parking space is a moving target that MBI has done. Every meeting, it's a different configuration. That doesn't help us. In March, MBI stated the mitigated negative deck would be ready by June 21st. That never happened. I called expecting to make comments. It's not available. With all due respect, the Montecito roundabout, I know Montecito, my sister has a house there. Getting off that, it's at the freeway. It is no comparison to Malaga Cove Plaza. And there was one that MBI told us to look at Chavez Ravine, where the Dodger Stadium is. That's not the Malaga Cove Plaza. Neither is the one in Maryland, I'm sorry to say. What you could look at is Catalina Avenue, Redondo Beach, and the traffic lights there, where it's very quiet. And you could maybe put a light like that. I'm going to ask the council do not erase the historical legacy or the medians in this plaza. Do not remove the historic Snellgrove Circle that no one's talked about in front of the fire station, which was paid for by public money. And do not remove the park and open space area surrounding the plaza.
Thank you, Mrs. Davidson. Okay. So Jerry.
Gentleman's hearing aid.
Oh, there you go.
Hey, you're a hero. For real.
So Jerry Marcel, Raj Bhagat, and Stacy Nozaki.
All right. Good evening. First of all, I appreciate what you guys do up there, so I want you to know that. And I know I've talked to a couple of you about this. But I disagree that the way this started tonight was that we have a problem that requires a long-term solution. I haven't heard, is there some organization or some requirement that we have to do this? I hope not. So we're not wasting our time, because I talked to Victoria at another meeting. She told me that the traffic circle was going to happen. Well, no, that's what she told me. So at that point, I said, well, fait accompli, I shouldn't waste my time. But here we go. So let's talk about the money a little bit. After talking to Mike, I realized that this wouldn't even be we wouldn't be all here if we didn't have this $5 million of free money, or 4.8, or I don't know. So, but what sometimes I lecture at LMU and I had a senior real estate class and the kid and talk to the kids about, is there such thing as free stuff from the government? And of course they all say, yeah. I said, no. All free stuff is built on somebody else's hard work. So this $8.8 million is coming from somebody. It's coming from taxpayers. There's probably a few taxpayers in this room who will pay part of it. And what do we gain? I've lived in Lower Malaga Cove for 40 years. My office is over the Ranch Market. I look at that intersection from my window 5 days a week. I see it clearly. And I go through that intersection 3 or 4 times a day on average, at least. 40 years, I have not seen the traffic get any better or any worse in 40 years. But all of a sudden, we got this problem because we've got this free money. So, and if you look at the circle, I don't know. I mean, sometimes I even walk to work because it's not very far. I couldn't get across that intersection with a traffic circle walking in the morning, unless you're going to put up lights, which we don't. I mean, most of us don't want a street light. So I mean, the police, the traffic police, I guess you call them traffic police. They're at what, $30,000 a year. If you look at this at 8, I was talking to Mike. It's going to be about $8 million, and you look at it at a 4% bond or something. That's $320,000 a year, over 10 times more than these traffic police. So it's not saving us, not saving money. So that shouldn't be the reason that we're all here. I just don't see it.
Marcel, time's up. Sorry. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for your comments, for sure. So, Raj Bhagat, Stacy Nozaki, and then Diana Honeycutt.
Hi, guys. I know you guys. I've interacted with you guys. But you may not know that I've never sent you an email. I'm not on Nextdoor. I've hardly come to City Hall meetings because, most of the time I'm very happy with everything that's going on. I've lived on PV Drive West for 37 years. The section that gets backed up is the 300, 400, 500, and 600 block of PV Drive West. And I'm in the middle at the half-mile mark. So that's a 1 mile backup that I see. What most people don't seem to realize is that PV Drive West is the busy street. And it brings traffic that then divides up into 3 sections. One section goes up to Del Monte. One section goes to PV Drive North, and the other section goes down PV Boulevard. So these are 3 different areas of South Bay that it feeds. That's the reason it gets backed up. I've seen traffic backing up on PV Boulevard or PV Drive North sometimes, but not to the extent that PV Drive West gets backed up going from west to east. So that's one thing to consider. Because when you look at roundabouts, like someone else mentioned, I'm used to roundabouts when I lived in London, and now the 2 roundabouts I'm familiar with are the Long Beach Circle and the Redondo Beach roundabout. I highly recommend that you guys go down there. On the best of days, when there's no traffic, I'm the only car approaching the roundabout. I don't go at 25 or 30 miles per hour. I slow down because it's a curve. The most you can do under the best of circumstances is 5 or 10 miles per hour. More likely 5, okay? So that doesn't help. And people here are not familiar with how a roundabout works. And even if the Palos Verdes Estate citizens become familiar. So many people use PV Drive. It's a Los Angeles County major artery. People from San Pedro, from Rancho PV, from Torrance, from Redondo Beach, and tourists, travelers, the people during COVID visiting our lovely cliffs. Everyone's here, the trucks, the workers, they don't know that you're not supposed to stop at a roundabout. They're just like, whoa, what's going on? And the moment you see a car coming, they don't know that how it works, that you give way, you yield to the one who's coming from your left. So it virtually becomes a stop sign, what I'm trying to say.
Sorry, and your time's up. Finish that thought.
And so, when I see this traffic police officers, that's like a green light or a red light. And that's what keeps the traffic moving at 25 to 30 miles per hour.
Okay. Thank you. Stacy Nozaki, Diana Honeycutt, and then Desiree Myers.
Thank you.
Oh, wait.
Several months ago, when the news leaked out about a possible deal between our city and Metro, most of us thought it would be impossible. It couldn't happen. Our trusted city council would never allow such a travesty. Our quiet streets and rural environment were to be preserved above all. In fact, there are probably a lot of us in the room tonight who voted for the 3 council people who are up for re-election soon. Voted because we felt you would not destroy the character of the city, the historic nature of the way the city was laid out about 100 years ago. And so you were voted in to preserve, not to destroy. But here we are. And I personally believe the stated traffic problem is largely a creation of Metro, wanting, of course, to expand their bus access to the south of us. Lots going on in San Pedro with the development of the waterfront, which is a great idea, probably, but a lot of increased housing that the state is requiring going in. So this quiet city along PV Drive West that we're talking mainly about, to have huge number of buses on behalf of Metro disturbing the quietness of a community that so many of us have lived here for a long time. And we value that quiet. We value the bucolicness of our surroundings. And I can't tell you how frustrated a lot of us are that we feel we've been sold out. And you seem to be so far ahead of us, and most of us didn't have any inclination this is going on until all of a sudden I've been told by a number of people, oh, it's too late, you can't do anything about it. I pray that isn't so. I pray that you will take the time to listen to the people who have taken their time to come here and explain how passionate we are for the city that we treasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Stacy Nozaki.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor, council members, and fellow residents. My name is Stacy Nozaki, and I have been a resident for 17 years. Like most residents, I was surprised that the city had been discussing a 2-phase, $7.8 to $9.6 million infrastructure project without the input of 99% of the community for 2 years. These were extraordinary years when everybody was preoccupied with more important matters related to the pandemic. To add to this, it appears that the choice for a 2-lane roundabout at Via Corta was accelerated and decided without adequate research as well as adequate outreach and approval. it begs us to ask the question, who is this project for? Having viewed many city meetings, it is perplexing that the choice for a two-lane roundabout was made without the approval of our own Traffic Safety Committee. Members of this committee are subject matter experts and raised important concerns that were ignored. What is the point of having a committee dedicated to traffic safety when their input is deemed irrelevant? Shouldn't safety be the first priority of any project? Several committee members spent considerable time and money researching and unveiling what the roundabout choice would mean. Ironically, this engagement is what the city and its consultants should have done. We have now learned that the roundabout not only jeopardizes our safety, but would blight our neighborhood with the removal of mature trees, green space, and the installation of required dusk to dawn lighting and excessive signage. Furthermore, it would open our city to environmental and financial liability. We are more aware of what the trade-offs are now and can see that the roundabout would cause more harm than good. This project has unearthed dysfunction within our city, lack of transparency, lack of respect for the residents, property owners, and business owners who are the chief sources of city revenue, lack of awareness by refusing to see that only 17 to 18% approval for a roundabout is not a mandate by the people. The city's response has unfortunately created a lack of trust and a lack of confidence. It should be obvious that the city should not accept Metro funding for a project that has outstanding safety, functional, and aesthetic issues. Instead, it's time to start over with real research, community engagement, and approval by the majority for using thoroughly vetted choices. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I have Desiree Myers, and then I have, sorry. Actually, sit tight, and I'm sure it'll be your turn soon.
He was actually called first, and he was
Oh,
at the
are you
very
Mr.
back
Gianni?
hallway
Roger.
in the very end, and it
Hey.
took him a few minutes to get up here.
Ms. Myers, do you mind if I take him first and you second? Great, wonderful. Mr. Gianni.
Roger Gianni, I agree with the lady that was talking about. We are absolutely change the picture of the Palos Verdes. Is roundabout is not the solution, first of all. Second, the question is the money that they are give it to city of Palos Verdes contingent to a low-income housing, which is against totally change the Palos Verdes to disaster. That's all about.
Oh, great. Thank you, Mr. Gianni. One second.
Hello, my name is Desiree Myers. I led the PVE Land Preservation Act, which is now passed, with the with the PVE, the Preserve PVE Resident Group. By the way, if anyone would like to join, let me know. We appreciate all perspectives. Here is the Preserve PVE position on the roundabout. We're concerned about grading a toxic site without full environmental review. City consultants indicate it would be expensive and an added cost to the city, but given the exposure of both financial liability and environmental toxins of that site, an environmental review appears to be warranted due diligence before proceeding further. Second, we're not sure why the corner is being zoned as is being stated as zone commercial. The city purchased the land using County Measure A funds and stated it would be used only to develop a park, and the city signed a resolution that it would remain a park into perpetuity. Separately, I'm also a council candidate. This seems relevant that the residents might be interested in knowing, if seated, how I would vote. I will vote to serve in the best interest of the residents. The residents have spoken clearly that they want the character of the city protected and object to the roundabout. Large development projects should require resident approval, particularly if it changes the character of our city or places the residents in massive debt by forcing taxes later. We have been burning through the $800,000 in design funds for 5 months now. This is not the preferred solution. My suggestion is we stop spending the Metro funds on this roundabout. We identify how much money's left and use it to identify the residents' preferred solution. We utilize a decision based by a vote of the people. The residents don't want to pause if it's just going to be forced after the election because they will perceive that as a bait and switch. Greg Jones has provided many residents and the city critical facts. We need to build trust by utilizing the county's documents Greg has shared and make fact-based decisions. City councils are here to serve in the best interest of the residents. So large development projects should require resident support, particularly if it changes the character of the city or places the residents in massive debt, forcing taxes later. We need to build trust to bring the community together. We're all in this together. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Myers. Great. So I have Greg Hogan, followed by Jack Mott and Mary Stewart.
Hello, my name's Greg. I've lived in PV East since 2005. I have worked in Europe, mostly France, Italy, Switzerland, for about almost 30 years. I've driven more roundabouts than probably anybody around. I love roundabouts, but not here. The biggest problem with this rendering are the pedestrian crosswalks. In Europe, they come in, you're moving, you're continually in and out. Whoops. But you do not have to stop for pedestrians at the roundabout itself. They usually have the pedestrian area set further back, which if you did that here, it'd be a double whammy. But anyway, this is dangerous. It's gonna. One of the other guys already stated how slow everyone's going to come into these things. You add pedestrians, cyclists, dog walkers, all that. I would have also liked to have seen a rendering of the traffic signal and not just of the roundabout so that we can get an idea of what the two differences are. Anyway, that's my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. Jack Mott. My turn. It is your turn.
Okay. Thank you. I'm Jack Mott. I've been a resident of Malaga Cove for 33 years. I'm a daily pedestrian crosser at Via Corta and PV Drive West. For residents of Malaga Cove and Belmonte, that is the only way to get down to the beach club, or the fields down in Malaga Cove. So I've tried to distill my comments down to 4 points. A lot of them have been taken, so I'll just move on. Point number 1, if it works, don't fix it. What exactly does this roundabout solution address? In the Zoom call a few months ago, the chief of police stated this intersection was no more problematic with respect to accidents and injury than other similar intersections in Palos Verdes Estates. So it appears the consultants were hired for this project for more of a roundabout justification than a fair evaluation of alternatives. If it's traffic issues that we're dealing with, this is not a new problem. And this known pinch point existed when Lunada Bay and the southwest parts of our city were developed in the 60s. And one pedestrian crossing this roundabout is going to stall this free flow of traffic because you're going to have to stop for that pedestrian. Okay? And I see the human, I don't know what to call them, the human traffic coordinators during peak hours. They're far more capable than any computer-controlled artificial intelligence control system with sensors, signals, and lights. The current system works. If the cost for these human traffic coordinators becomes prohibitive, I suggest the city consider a volunteer force trained and certified by the police department and covered by the city's liability insurance policy. Okay. Point number 2, how much does this roundabout really cost? The city has a history of less than complete disclosure about the true cost of a project or measures. Consider Measure E, a budget issue that was politically repositioned to save our police department, where in fact Measure E knowingly only covered a small fraction of the unfunded police liability. Point number 3, the Palos Verdes Estates Tract 6885 protective deed restrictions. We all signed these when we bought our homes, and we live by them. And I quote, "The restrictions have been most carefully worked out for every part of Palos Verdes Estates to accomplish the following results." Point number 2 is to increase the wonderful natural beauty of the property enhanced with fine planting. And this project requires cutting down trees, maybe replacing them with 7 3-foot box trees as opposed to 20-foot trees. By the deed restrictions, which include the trees, say that they can only be changed by 2/3 of the property's owners. And that's really the way of life that we live by.
Great.
And to change the character of the city, a 2/3 vote was envisioned, not by a vote by 5 city council
Thank you,
members.
Mr. Mott.
Okay.
Sorry, your time's up.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mott.
I've run out of time. Sorry.
Yep, thank you. Mary Stewart, and then Richard Carlson and Darcel Ramirez Hampson.
Hi, I would also like to make a comment as well about the pedestrian walkways. And I second the gentleman who spends a lot of time in Europe. I've also driven around many, many roundabouts as well. And I absolutely feel like the pedestrian walkway should be moved further away from the roundabout, because when you're going into a roundabout, you really are paying attention to the traffic to the left. You're looking at traffic. You can't simultaneously look at traffic and then wonder if someone's going to be trying to walk across the street. You can't slam on the brake fast enough, and that's going to cause an accident. And I wholeheartedly agree. You deal with the traffic before you get to, you deal with the foot traffic, people crossing before the roundabout. Then you start, you're going towards the roundabout, and then you're just dealing with traffic and not putting everything together at the same time. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Richard
My name's Richard Carlson. I'm here with my wife, Pat. We live at 357 Palos Verdes Drive West. That's 5 houses down from the intersection. And in the 45 years, we have experienced a lot of training on backing out. In the last 4 years, because of the traffic, I think we've finally achieved Top Gun rating on getting out. Here's the problem. The traffic right now has a pulse. The pulse is the boulevard stop sign. People stop and let other people go the other direction. We, down the street, have that break in the traffic, we can pull out. When the traffic is controlled by the guards, there's a time when she says, all right, all the traffic flow west. Keep flowing. During that time, there is no chance to get out. Forget it. You have to wait till she stops the traffic again. I invite anybody here, especially the traffic engineers, to come to my driveway, pull in at peak hour when there's traffic control guards controlling the traffic. Pull in the driveway, and when that guard says traffic flow west, they will experience what a traffic circle will look like continuously. There will be no pulse. It'll just keep flowing. So please send somebody and take a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson. So Darcel Ramirez Hanson, and then Joe, and I'm going to mess up your last name. Noenskald?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Everybody. It's a long list. And I'm a newcomer. I've lived at my home 30 years. I've seen these people walk. At the beginning of this, some time back, there was a lot of talk that there were no pedestrians that crossed the street. But and that's just a very small inkling. We have had such tremendous misrepresentation. Misrepresentation about the tree loss. It's absolutely gross. What she showed was not accurate. Let's talk about Lot O. That decimates everything there. Let's talk about the first initial pushback that all of us had to do just to save those eucalyptus that now you guys clap yourself on the back for keeping. It's gross misrepresentation here. I think we should have a revolving council seat so people can join without being, it's a great, long, tremendous tour of duty. So I do want to thank you because you have that bandwidth, but it's going the wrong direction. And when this wonderful woman talks about destroying our environment, I mean, you guys are taking it down. I began by speaking to you, Mayor Losey. The very first time I ever came on, I said, stop. There are so many absolute liabilities. And the first one is pedestrian death. I want you to understand, it's going to happen with a double roundabout. It's going to happen. It's a certainty that our own committee traffic professional told us about. There are many others that can represent different facts here to our public for accuracy. But I'm going to tell you, this is wrong. And you really shouldn't spend any more time on the council. Forgive me for saying that. Whatever you've done, you've done. I'll assume you've done it with good intentions until I see Civic Center and pool. Lot O, you don't get it. The credo for your city council should be what our ordinances are about, preserving the parkland. If you don't get that, don't be on. The two of you are on an ad hoc about how to develop Lot O. Come on. This has to stop.
Great. Thanks, Ms. Hampson.
Thank you.
Joe, and please tell me your last name.
Hi, I'm Joe Knernschild. I live at
I wasn't even close.
That's all right.
I'm sorry. All right.
I live at 533 Palos Verdes Drive West. I'm the individual who's had 3 cars totaled in front of my home. I was washing my car when was totaled and it flew on my neighbor's roof, Diane Bear. So, I have my experience when it comes to the traffic accidents and the serious dangers that PV Drive West represents. I love roundabouts. I've traveled many, like Australia, Japan, where I'm driving on the opposite side of the street. But as one speaker said earlier, PV Drive West is not the street for a roundabout. I'm focusing strictly on the safety issue. I walk my dog at least once a day, often twice a day, up PV Drive West. I use that crosswalk. Now it's like a nightmare trying to get across it. I can't imagine what it would be like when somebody's not slowing down and I'm trying to cross it with my dog. I'm looking around this room and there's a lot of people like me that have a lot of gray hair. I mean, Ned Cook is my neighbor. And, Ned Cook, when he backs out of his driveway, it is a full-on nightmare. I go like, oh my God, just trying to get in and out. And it was Ned Cook who actually was backing out, and the traffic officer on the motorcycle was coming down, and there was that awful accident that happened. And, I can't imagine that the traffic circle is going to mitigate that or help, because it's going to increase the speeds on PV Drive West. It's not going to decrease it. And then I'm also concerned with the packets of cars, because now, at least as this gentleman said, we have with the stop sign, you can get in and out of your driveway, but there's packets. You can time it right, and okay, I can get out of here. But there's often times in the day where I say I can't even get left out of my driveway. So okay, it's cool. I'm not going to fight my wife who goes nuclear on me when I'm trying to turn left, and she says don't do it. It's too dangerous. I mean, this traffic circle is going to cause it. It's going to be much worse. I pray that you guys know what you're doing and take, I can look at it from what Jerry said with the financial impact, and I'm all there, but I'm looking at it strictly and totally as a safety issue. That's it. I'm not in support of this roundabout at all. Please reconsider.
Thank you. So I've got Glenn Tanner, Larry, thank you, and Greg Jones.
Hello, Council and Mayor and Honorary Council. I'll be uncharacteristically brief. About 17 years ago, we had a mayor in this town named Mr. Flood. And Mr. Flood told me when I served on the Planning Commission for 4 years, all you have to do is polish the jewel that is the city of Palos Verdes Estates. This project doesn't polish the jewel. It throws it on the ground, it shatters it, and kicks it down the curb into the drain. It is literally an answer to the question that nobody's asked, and the cure is worse than the disease. Nobody here moved to Palos Verdes Estates for traffic efficiency. If that's your jam, move to Manhattan Beach. They got a lot of computerized lights there. You'll love it. A lot of us moved up here to get away from it all. The roundabout, frankly, takes it all and moves it back on top of us. There's so many issues with this project that are wrong. I mean, from pedestrian safety, traffic safety, bicycle safety, it jams. I'm sorry, I'm an expert in fluid flow. Unrestrained flow will jam up the Y going east and west at opposite times during the day in each direction. Cuts down trees, might have stadium lighting, takes open land, which you can't even do now because you were so good to have passed the open land initiative as law. You can't even take any open parcels now and give it to the roundabout without a vote of the people. So we can't even really proceed here on that. And not to mention, I guess my main point is this whole process has been a little bit of a sham in that you have concentrated on the highest capital and the highest ongoing O&M maintenance and operating costs of the projects, the traffic circle and traffic lights. Not one person has looked at the more logical and easier, what we call in the business, low cost, no cost solution. And the best low cost, no cost solution is to leave the intersection as is with a couple tweaks. Not just as is, but as is with a couple of improvements. One, the first improvement, you could cut traffic down dramatically on that intersection today by mandating paid parking along all the coastline access points. We are literally the only city from Mexico to Canada with prime coastal access that doesn't charge for parking. Second of all, we should expand the traffic control personnel at least an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, and that will cover the peak periods. I in and out of there every day. I've never waited 30 minutes. I never waited 10 minutes, 5 minutes maybe. But anyway, that's my suggestions, and I appreciate the transparency finally.
Thank you, Mr. Tanner. Mr. Boer.
Good evening. My name is Larry Boer. First, something positive. You guys have done a great job on resurfacing. We all should give you compared to Torrance, Redondo Beach, and the city of LA, which doesn't do it, you guys are great, so thank you. Wait, got my notes here. You should make sure that this Proposition M doesn't involve any federal money because we take part of a park and federal money doesn't allow you to take part of a park for a road project. So just should make sure this Measure M money doesn't include federal money. Tell me your name, the engineer. Eric? Eric? Garrick. Eric, okay. Have you ever testified in court? There's a reason I'm asking. If there was an accident, the city would have to, and they sued the city would have to get an expert to testify that the road is safe. And you would be under oath if the city called you. Are you aware in general of the studies that say a one-lane roundabout is generally safer than 4 stop signs? I'll tell you that that's the studies I found. And are you generally aware that a 2-lane roundabout is more dangerous than a 1-lane roundabout? You're nodding, you're aware of that. And are you aware that a 2-lane roundabout is more dangerous for bicycles than a 1-lane roundabout or a no roundabout? You're generally aware of that? Okay. So you would not be able to go to court and testify under oath that the traffic design that's up on this map here is safer than the current condition. Would you be able to testify?
So, Mr. Boer, you just need to make your comments. It's not really a back and forth right now in this format.
All right. I'm trying to make a point. Most of my issues have to do with safety.
Okay.
Because I started out as a lawyer for Caltrans, and then for County of Los Angeles. I did lots and lots of road accident cases. They are expensive to defend, even if you win. The city pays that either directly. I don't know if you have House Counsel does that, or with your insurance, but it's a real significant added to the cost of the city if there start to be traffic accidents and you have to pay to defend them, even if you win. In the picture, the drawing with the trees, it looked like the fountain was missing. Is the fountain going to disappear? No. Is it? No. It's not. Okay. Thank you. For pedestrians crossing, is there when a pedestrian crosses, they push a button and then cars have to stop? Is that how it's set up?
So your concern is that, thank you, sorry, your time is up, and so we'll have to, maybe you can send in, can you maybe send in your, maybe you could, since you have so many questions, could you maybe email them in and then we can
They're all related to safety
them?
issues, bicycles and so forth.
Great, well, thank you for your comments and
All right.
send them in and we'll respond.
Thank you.
Oh,
Hi,
sorry, Mr. Jones, and then John Williams is next.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Lozzi and members of the City Council. My name is Greg Jones. I'm a resident of Lanada Bay.
Wait, sorry, Mr. Jones, hold on one second. There's a little, just to give you, and just go ahead and reset that. Hold on. Got a little movement around here. Hold on. Okay, can you reset him, please? Oh, thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, great, thank you. Tonight I'm here representing PVE Advocates, a community-based organization comprised of residents and business owners who came together after identifying major issues and concerns regarding the roundabout. In March, the City Council made its selection of the roundabout as your preferred alternative to move forward in Phase 1 design, based on bias and incomplete analysis by MBI, and a rush by H.R. Green, MBI, and the City Council to meet the April deadline for requesting metro construction funding. However, the community raised major concerns about the roundabout that should have been better understood and addressed up front as part of the initial analysis so the community and the City Council could better understand and assess before making the preferred selection, such as addressing Transportation Safety Committee and community concerns related to pedestrian, cyclist, and traffic safety, ensuring traffic flow conditions for residents living on PV Drive West and Via Corta and Valmonte residents trying to cross the Flag Triangle are better, not worse. Protecting against the loss of mature trees, green space, and protected parklands. Avoiding the impact of excessive dusk to dawn lighting, signage, and loss of critical parking. Avoiding exposure to known environmental liabilities and associated financial risk and environmental liability that will transfer to the city from Mobil Oil Company. Maintaining the bucolic character of PVE in our city center. Ensuring community that there is no metro purse strings associated with receiving Metro Measure D funding. And providing effective project management and fiscal responsibility. And at last but not least, improving community communications, outreach, awareness, and receiving the majority support of PVE residents within the community. It's these reasons why over 675 residents have come together to sign a petition that has been provided to you as our elected representatives, requesting you to place the construction of the roundabout on hold and do not accept metro grant funding in September. To complete an analysis of alternatives such as doing nothing or installing a vintage traffic signal that does not widen the roadway. Increase communications and outreach of this project with the PVE community and base the decision on an advisory vote of the people on the November ballot and commit to do so in a timely manner. Let's not waste any more time on a roundabout project that only 17% of the community supports. Please consider accepting the petition and informing PVE residents as early as tonight of your decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. So I have, let's see, John Williams.
Yes.
And then Valerie Gorsuch.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City staff. Thank you for your service. I have lived in Palos Verdes Estates for 40 years in the Monte Malaga area on Catalina Place. And for most of those years, and even the years preceding, I drove to work in El Segundo through Malaga Cove. I've been through that intersection twice a day, 5 days a week for over 30 years. And I will say it was not anything I ever looked forward to. But on the other hand, getting to work entailed about 40 traffic lights and 35 minutes, so a couple extra minutes more or less in Malaga Cove weren't the worst thing I had to face. One of the earlier speakers made what I thought was a very germane point. At peak rush hour, peak traffic periods, traffic is miserable everywhere. And really, it may be an illusion to think you can change it in Malaga Cove Plaza. So my professional work was in aerospace engineering, and I've worked with models all my life. The first model I developed was in 1968, so I have quite a few years dealing with them. And models are very tricky things. And I am concerned, based on what I've seen in the Michael Baker presentation, that their model might be incomplete, it might be incorrect, and they certainly have not provided the statistics I would like to see out of any model. They've provided the mean wait times under a fairly narrow set of circumstances. I'd like to see the minimum wait time, the maximum wait time, the standard deviation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Models are very good at generating all of this information. So I think that would be something the City Council should look into. And even with the data they provided, the average numbers, to me, the case for a roundabout is not very compelling, considering the fact that models are obviously going to be inaccurate and, in fact, will vary from day to day. Now, moving on to what I might prefer, personally, I think a traffic signal is a very nice alternative. But even above that, I think it's well within the city's current power to make some improvements without waiting for a major vote or a major bond issue. I think the upper barrel of PV Drive West is long overdue to be closed. That would greatly improve the flow through the four-way intersection. And I think the parking on the north side of PV Drive West opposite Malaga Cove Plaza could be eliminated and the extra traffic lane changed. So with that, my time is up, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Valerie Gorsuch, then Susan Fenton.
Hi, I'm Valerie Gorsuch, and I have lived in my home for 47 years. So traffic here is not a surprise to me. I've seen it go on. I saw the city newsletter in 1998. We dealt with the same problem. Roundabouts are supposed to keep traffic flowing. And when there's a pedestrian, the roundabout stops. It is not going to let traffic flow continuously. There will be pedestrians, especially at the time when the traffic is the heaviest. We have school buses that stop on the corners. We have children going across the crosswalks. And it really bothered me that the consultants happened to say on a meeting online that they never actually considered about the blinding sun. Like when you're heading east in the morning, you can't see squat. It's complete blindness from the sun coming up. And in the afternoon, when you're driving west, you can't see a thing because the setting sun is right in your face. So pedestrians, roundabouts, they don't work. If you happen to give away part of the open space land, which you shouldn't, I don't know whether Metro is going to pay for the clearing of the contaminated earth that was a gas station. And maybe you don't know, but we can't dig there. I don't understand the fact that when we finally voted on March meeting, on the Zoom meeting, and the Traffic Commission didn't really seem in favor of this, City Council voted yes, and most of that seemed to be they didn't want a light. And now you're going to put in 8 lights, and they will be from dusk until dawn. We are having lights there, and then we're going to have the pedestrian lights. We are going to have such an illuminated intersection in the middle of the night. I'm glad I don't live around there because those lights are going to be right on my bedroom window. So I will say again, as everyone who knows me, I do not want the roundabout. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have Susan Fenton? Not here? Okay, we'll put that one aside. Stephen Parent? Oh, yay.
Good evening, City Council. Thank you for your service. I really appreciate it. I know it's a tough job. Most of my points have been made already, so I'll try to keep this brief. As I was sitting here looking at this presentation, this young lady right here, a couple months ago, I was walking around a neighborhood, and I met her down by the library, and she told me about the roundabout and all this stuff going on. I had no idea. I'm a relatively new resident here. 3 years. I moved here just because I love PV. I love everything about it, and I kind of want to keep it that way. That's kind of why I moved here. You know, one thing I was astounded by during the presentation, the City Council, I think Ms. Murdoch and Mr. Ruse, you guys were asking, oh, what about the lighting? Did we consider, I mean, all these questions you guys were asking, was that for our benefit? Because first of all, it must have been, because I can't believe at this stage in the project, you guys didn't ask any of these questions. You guys have no clue. So I don't know, I was wondering about that. To me, the easiest solution is a stoplight. Now, better than that is a traffic policeman. I mean, you have a human out there that does the same thing as a stoplight, but better. So anyway, again, my point has been made by everybody else here. I appreciate you giving me the time, and I'm absolutely against a roundabout. I would not want my wife, my daughter crossing that thing or attempting to get across that. That would be a nightmare. And somebody mentioned charging for parking at the beach. Hey, wait a minute, I go to the beach a lot. So no charging for parking at the beach unless it's free for residents. That's right. Other than that, I really appreciate your time. I know you guys, I'm assuming you guys have our best interest. Anecdotally, I've spoken to most of my neighbors since I spoke with you who weren't aware of this project, and not one person has said they're in favor of a roundabout or even stoplights for that matter. So I'm right there with them. I do not want a roundabout. I do not want stoplights. I'll deal with the 2-minute wait, the 5-minute wait. I don't care. I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have Susan Griego, then NJ Yeager, and Georgianne Dorn.
Hello.
My name is Susan Porter Griego. I have lived in Palos Verdes since I was 3 years old. 59 years I've lived in Palos Verdes. And there are people in this room I went to Palos Verdes High School with who are very sharp people. Very sharp people. And I just wanted to share with you that the problem that I see we have is a periodic traffic issue. And it also appears that's a solution. We have a solution. And that solution has been a traffic safety person for those periodic times that we have traffic issues. What I think is the most economical thing to do to maintain the character of the city, to preserve safety, and to actually preserve the vision of Mr. Vanderlip and the beautiful design that Mr. Olmsted did here, is to make that position a permanent one. There is no possible way that a part-time safety person could even be a fraction of the salary of some of the city staff that we pay salaries for. And by the way, for anybody who's tried to go to City Hall on a Friday, that doesn't happen because somewhere along the line, they don't work on Fridays. The biggest problem I see is not a safety issue. The biggest problem I see is an out of control city council bloated with hubris and power, passing a massive traffic plan under the cover of darkness without appropriate and extensive city citizen review. The solution to this problem is very clear. We have an upcoming city election, and I believe that supporting people like Des Myers and other like-minded persons who put this city first, put its residents' opinions first, put its history first, are people who I would like to support for this city council. Because there is no possible way that we can continue with our city with this kind of behavior. Thank you.
Thank you. MJ.
Hi.
Hi.
Well, I am here to tell you I will be a traffic coordinator. That's all I have to say.
Georgianne, we're getting to the end. Georgianne Dorn and Janice Mayer? Is Georgianne Dorn still here? I don't see her. Oh, there you are. Everything's been said. Thank you. Janice Mayer? Everything has been covered. Thank you. Jerry McAuliffe? No? Where? Oh, great. Thank you.
I didn't actually write my whole name out because it's hard to pronounce.
Well, I was going to say, gosh, I feel like there's some letters missing on this card. But
I just put McLV, but it's
Thank you.
I'm a resident of Villa Ramon for 45 years, and we raised 4 girls up here, and they all cried, by the way. That one gentleman couldn't stand a crying baby, so he's in for it. Anyway, I'm against any changes. I don't see a problem. I did one thing you said in your opening speech about, you mentioned the word problem, so you obviously think there's a problem, and I don't think there's a problem. I've never had an issue. I belong to the beach club. We raised our kids here, and I'm not aware of any major accidents or people getting killed, or in any of either the Triangle or the Via Corta. So I don't think we should make any changes, and And that's how I very strongly feel that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Bernardo Huelga, there you are. And then did Susan Fenton come back? No, we lost her. Okay. Great.
Hello, everybody. My name is Bernardo Huelga. I live in Villa La Selva here in Valmonte area. All the points have been made, and it's what happened when you submit it late. So thank you, everybody, for expressing the points. I'm also against the roundabout, but I want to make a couple of comments. Thank you for sending flyers, for announcing this meeting as it should be, and not happening before. Right? We have, it's been 3 or 4 meetings of this. I attended on Zoom and that, but 2-3 months ago, I talked to people and I asked them, what do you think about the roundabouts? And they were like, what roundabout? What are you talking about? You don't know anything about this. How can that be? You know, it's like, thank you for announcing this well, and please, I encourage you to do this for all the upcoming meetings, right? This is very important, but all the meetings are important for the citizens, so let's do that. And the second thing is, please reconsider, as when I came here and I saw all these people, when I came, I couldn't even go through the door. It was packed. So all the city councils should be like that, right? If you announce it correctly and it gives the importance that it needs, right? So I ask you also, please reconsider. You hear it from everybody here, right? So reconsider, stop, think about it, and ask the citizens what we want here, right? I'm recently new citizen. I only been living here for 8 years, and I also don't want to change anything. I love Malaga Cove. I can't believe that we're even talking about changing Malaga Cove Plaza, one of the most iconic places in Palos Verdes. So I go there with my family, three girls I have, and my wife every week, and I love it. And looking at this roundabout, I will never cross that thing. It's like, with my kids, right? It's like, it's crazy. So please stop, reconsider, ask the citizens. Thank you.
Great, thank you. That's all the cards I had. Was there anybody else? Oh, one more card in the back.
I just calmed my wife down to make sure she knew I wasn't going to embarrass anyone. I don't live here. But COVID put me here.
Maybe say your name, sorry.
Don Frazier. I teach at Peninsula High School, and I avoid this area like the plague, like COVID. But the only reason I avoid it is because I don't like getting cut off. It irritates me. It's unfair. And the problem to me is the 5-way intersection. If you just cut it to like 4 with the police fire right there, you just block that and let no one cut me off. It'll go right through. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Okay. All right. With that, I'm going to close the public comment. So some people have left. So if I know some people, I still see people standing. If you want to try and sit, feel free to do that. Okay. Here we are. So I guess we need to bring this back to council discussion. We've obviously had a lot of comments, which is great. We really do appreciate all the comments for sure. Who would like to start us off, Mayor Pro Tem, or no?
Sure.
Okay.
Microphone closer.
What's that?
Lean in.
Speak up.
So I got a few. Let me start by saying this. I want to thank everyone who spoke. I think it's really good to have the feedback. I want to thank our city manager who encouraged the sending of the mailer and that went out and invited everyone to this meeting. I really appreciate everything that we've heard today. I want to give you guys, all 5 of us voted in favor of this project. I think most of you probably know that. And I just want to give you guys some background in case you, first of all, I want to apologize because if it seemed like it was rushed, I think it probably was rushed, and I think I personally had something to do with that. The project, most of you know, had been under some kind of consideration for a long period of time. but did not really get going in earnest until this year. And when it was presented to us, the funding deadline was presented to us, I think we were eager to move forward and not lose free, what is essentially free money to the city. And I agree with the assessment of the public that probably contributed to a feeling that we were moving much faster than we should have. I can't speak for my colleagues about why we chose this particular configuration versus the signal, but I'll tell you the reason that I was drawn to this was primarily because I felt that it reflected the character of the city more than anything, and so that's why. If you give me a moment, that's part of what drew me to this. So I want to make sure that you understand, at least in my case, and I think my colleagues, some of them might express the same opinion. We were motivated, or I was motivated, by an intention to try to preserve the character. I can appreciate, though, especially to the extent that this widens the roadway, and that it does change the character of that area. Whether it's in keeping with the character that we want is difficult for me to assess right now because we're looking at diagrams, drawings of it. A lot of folks have expressed the opinion that there isn't a problem with the intersection. It's difficult for me to personally to say that that's true. I live in Lunada Bay, and especially coming eastbound, it does feel like there are times when it's backed up quite a ways. Whether or not this is the appropriate solution to that problem is a different question. And I think that one that maybe we need to ask ourselves again about whether a project of this size is appropriate for the size of the problem that we have. And others have, I think some of the speakers suggested that expanding the traffic direction is a better solution. That is not without its challenges either. It's not always safe at all times of day for someone to be in the intersection, especially in the winter. And that's a consideration for us too. It's definitely seems to me to be the case that the five of us, do not know, or we did not anticipate how the public feels about this project, and there's definitely room for us to learn a lot more before we continue. So I have a couple of questions maybe for staff, if that's okay, real quick. Is MBI, they're actively working. Actually, before I do that, let me just address one more thing, because there was a question about some of the questions that some of the council members, including me, were asking, and I want to make it clear. Before my preparation for this meeting, I did not know the answers to some of those questions, and I want to explain why. This is a multi-phase process. This is what we're looking at right now is actually the 35%. There are, in my thinking prior to this meeting, I thought there were many problems with this design that I had not yet had the opportunity to express in meetings. I did not like the fact that there's a median that was extending all the way eastbound almost to the triangle. I did not like that the position of the opening in front of the fire station appears to require fire trucks to make a left jog to get out of there. I did not like that some of the sidewalks are pulled so close to the street, and I felt like they needed, in around Olmsted Place, they're actually in that configuration now, but I thought we should take the opportunity and probably move them back and create more green space rather than just have hardscape that goes straight across the street. And I've had many questions about the lighting and about the amount of signage, not all of which I had answers to until very recently. In preparation for this meeting, I was in contact with engineers at MBI who were giving me some of those answers, but it's absolutely true that I asked some of those questions for the benefit of the public, and also true that I didn't have them prior to the last week or so. And then anyway, my question for staff was about
This is obviously, we're engaged in this project with MBI. They're continuing to work on that. They are invoicing us regularly. Is that the case? Okay.
That is correct.
So a decision to stop that would presumably stop the billing in that regard. Okay. That's my only question.
Yeah, I'll go on next. One of the concerns
Speaker, microphone.
Sorry. One of the concerns I have to start with is with traffic officers in the intersection. And as much as I like that during the morning and the afternoon rush hours, I've got serious concerns about the risk of having a human being in that intersection in the months of December, January, February, when it's dark out there. And we, at one time, we brought some temporary lights in to illuminate that intersection so it provided the safety for whoever is directing traffic. The residents didn't like the lights, and we took them away. And one of the problems that we've got is a safety issue in my mind. And if I wouldn't be so blunt here, Chief, could I ask you to just comment on some of your observations about the directing the traffic and whether we have any potential risks that I perceive?
Yeah, Councilmember McGowan. Obviously, when you have someone standing at the intersection and vehicles are traveling in multiple directions around them, there is a risk to that. In response to the lights, we did suspend nighttime traffic control because it requires 2 light towers to illuminate the traffic control officer so that they can be seen in that intersection. We did have some complaints about the generators, the noise that it created. We opted for solar paneled lights. They weren't bright enough. Our motorists were complaining that they couldn't see the officer, the intersection was dangerous. So we went back to the diesel powered lights. And I think when we looked at this issue, a long-term solution, I think those diesel generator lights were about $20,000 each. And they either have to stay out there at Olmsted Place and at the center median where we put up the banners, or Streets and Parks crew has to bring them in every single night in the evening. So for safety reasons, we suspended the nighttime operations. In the winter months, the traffic control ends a little sooner.
Thank you, Chief. I mean, that was one of my concerns early on. Is doing nothing is really not it's not mitigating our risks to the residents, because if someone gets hit out there, the city could be potentially liable. But then I go on to, and I will hitchhike on what Mayor Pro Tem had said. When we analyzed the initial stage of this, we had a ton of unanswered questions. Lighting was a key one, the crosswalks for pedestrians, whether they should be have lights in the and sensors in the pavement, what trees were involved, and how parking. There was 100 questions that we weren't able to answer, and that's one of the reasons why we authorized the city to go forward to get to the next stage of design. Not that we were committed to it, but because we didn't have answers to questions and we didn't know how that would play out. I think the residents have been overwhelming this evening with their emails and their responses, and I will go back to the comment that I made earlier this evening, that I would entertain that we considered going out and probably with an RFP to obtain I'm going to call it a peer review engineering firm, which would cost the residents more money. But I think we need to analyze all potential options for that intersection, whether they're funded by Metro or not. We had residents talk about closing down the barrel. That may be one option, but that's going to have some cost associated with it. Whether we put lights in, whether it's a 5-way intersection or a 4-way intersection, what the backup is back to the triangle with where the flags are. These are all concerns that I think we need to have thought through thoroughly before we make any decisions about what we do to this intersection. It is a problem, I believe. Some people view it bigger than others, and I appreciate that. But I believe that we don't have as much analysis and tangible input from the residents, and I think having focus groups with a sampling of our residents that are from all parts of the community and all ages and all demographics and so forth, so that we can get an honest appraisal of looking at the various options. And I'm not limiting these options, Mr. Prestwich, to just the existing light or the roundabout. If there is an additional concept that can be developed, I'm not a traffic engineer and I won't make any predictions on that, but I'm open to all the suggestions to see what makes sense. And most likely, at the end of the day, whether it be do nothing, whether it be lights, whether it be roundabouts or a combination, whether it's a 1 lane or 2 lane, there's going to be people that are going to be in favor of it and those that are not. And I think that's one of the things that we get paid the big bucks up here to make those decisions for. Thank you.
Councilmember Kemp?
I'm going to differ a little bit from that. I think in looking at additional data and certainly having a peer review and having focus groups and all that, that's excellent, wonderful, and that's what the residents are asking for. I honestly think we have enough data to make, hold on, we're getting there. This is really going to make you clap, so hold on when I say it. I think we need to make a firm commitment to the community that the roundabout's dead. So it is what it is. But beyond that, and here's the point in saying that, and maybe by the clapping, this is what you hear. I think A, we need to prove that we're listening. B, I don't know that we even realized as much, and we should have, that we were destroying trust. And I think by making that commitment, we will start to reestablish that trust, and then be able to go back and look at the intersection, and they won't feel like they're going to be hoodwinked into a roundabout when we do it. So I support looking at whatever it was good. Happy to continue to look at it. I do think there is a challenge. Concerned definitely about having people in the intersection when it gets dark. Residents don't want lights in that intersection. They've said it all night. So I think that's where I am.
Councilmember.
You know, it's interesting. This has been an evolving process, and when we first embarked on it, at least when I first embarked on it, because I wasn't here for part of the original feasibility study, in the February time period, we had a number of residents who were supportive of the roundabout. So it's interesting, data's always about sampling, right? So it's interesting, you're right, they're not here tonight. And so there were a couple tonight that were supportive. So this has been really interesting as we've engaged more residents, and we need to do more of this, that we've gotten more data points around what residents want and what they don't want. And when we made the decision back in March, as Dave said, there was a list of at least 10 areas that residents and council and the Traffic Safety Committee had stated were areas of concern. And so in any design project, you get more detail as you go along. So those concerns were around lighting and pedestrian safety and parking and bicycle safety and all of that. And we've been waiting for MBI to share those results. But, what I'm hearing and what I'm reading in all the emails is that residents aren't supportive of a roundabout. So I have a little bit of a different perspective, which is, it's interesting because different parts of the city have different experiences with that intersection, right? There are some areas, and if you look at the original feasibility study, there are some areas that currently have a B level of service. There are other areas that have a C level of service, and so, you know, they're getting a good level of service. There is a part of the city that is getting an F level of service. And so my question is, what can we do to improve their service without blowing things up, right? So as a resident who's getting F level of service, my question is, gosh, if I could get to a C, you know, that might be really neat. And so what I'm wondering is, yeah, I'm okay with a peer review. I'm okay with somebody else looking through the data and saying, hey, were there things that we didn't think about? But I'm talking about small scale. I'm not talking about, you know, I'm talking about somebody coming in, glancing through stuff and saying, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Glenn Tanner had some ideas. John Williams had some ideas. You know, maybe it's as simple as cutting off the inner barrel, taking away the parking, doing some, I'm not a traffic engineer, so maybe there's something we can do around signage so people know they're supposed to turn left when they're going west and where they can turn. Maybe there's some simple fixes. I've lived here 24 years. I don't need an A level of service. If I can get from my F to a C, I'm okay. I can live with that. You know, but that's me. What I'm hearing from this group is they're concerned about over-engineering, and I think it's our responsibility to listen and to think about, well, what are some smaller scale yet impactful modifications that we can do and not waste a ton of money studying it to figure it out, because we do that all the time, and we just, one of the reasons I came here was to stop doing that, so.
All right, thank you. City manager or public works director?
I have more comments.
Oh, go ahead.
More discussion, because we
Okay.
have a couple of directions that we could possibly go here.
Well, that's what I was trying to kind of get him to lead us through that, but go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to say I'm Dave. You know, I'm sorry. I'm not really super excited about the idea of putting a bunch more money into another engineering firm that's probably going to tell us. I have every reason to believe that if you are trying to solve this problem with a large-scale solution like this, that any competent engineering firm is going to affirm what MBI has done for us. The question before us is whether or not we want this kind of solution, which is not answered by that. So to Dawn's, Councilmember Murdoch's point about exploring less impactful solutions, I wonder if maybe the right thing for us to do is to refer that to the Traffic Safety Committee and let them proceed.
When I was, excuse me, Jim, when I was talking about the peer review, I was really trying to get some alternative solutions that may or may not be a roundabout, and most likely it would not be, because closing the barrel is the easiest example I can put on the table. But I don't know what the impact of closing the barrel will do. I think during the rush hour, it's effectively closed now when there's someone directing traffic. But if there's someone not directing traffic out there, like in January, and there's a long line, what is the impact of that? Those are the kinds of questions I'm asking myself that I'd like to understand. I'm not trying to support the roundabout in any shape or form, but I'm looking at alternative solutions because I think we have a problem that we have to deal with. As the chief of police,
the residents made comments about some of their suggestions. Removing parking and dealing with the upper barrel, et cetera. One thing that I think Councilmember Roos brought up during one of the earlier conversations, not tonight, was whether or not the solution. I have trouble describing this, as Dawn will laugh. At Silver Spur and Palos Verdes Drive North, where there is a right passing lane that you're not supposed to pass on the right through, Do those kinds of things improve, and will they help us? As opposed to, absolutely, yes, we've listened, and yes, we can just walk away. But let's look at this intelligently. Greg Jones, if you're still here, thank you for the suggestions. And thank you for the efforts in reaching out to the community. I hope he was actually still here to hear that. Whether it's collective community input and or if it's, whether it's MBI or another firm, taking this suggestion that the community really doesn't want a large public works project, that they don't care necessarily, wait till they have to pay for it, about funding from the county as being the condition. Let's go to the complete other side and start slowly and build up. We need those suggestions, and I think when I say we, I include the Traffic Safety Committee. So even referring it to them and putting them through a few meetings, they're going to look around and go, well, we need a traffic engineer, we need support. So if we're going to do that, that's fine. There were some comments tonight about this hitting the council too fast and the Traffic Safety Committee needing to invest more time. So great, but let's give them the resources that they need to do that, and then let's engage the community to get there.
I can be supportive of that.
Okay, so I think I'm hearing a consensus here to direct staff to go, I think, down a path of finding a less impactful, actually you said it well, just not a large-scale public works project.
Minimally invasive. How about that?
There you go. That still addresses, at least improves the problem.
So what are the implications of that for our current agreement with MBI and the progress of this project?
We probably don't know that. We're probably going to have to, I would think, I don't know, Mark, if you have a comment on that, but I would think they need to go away and think about that and report back. But do you have some comments and observations for us and guidance?
Sure. And I have some notes that I'll need to walk through and receive some feedback on. And I may need to ask our Public Works Director to borrow her energy here pretty soon to keep this laptop alive.
Uh-oh.
Do it now, quick.
I think it's okay right now. So I want to clarify some expectations so that we're clear on where we're headed. But if we're looking at bringing back some other approach, then I want to clarify that we would suspend or discontinue essentially the outreach plan for the parking mitigation.
Yes.
Okay. And because it's often difficult to develop an appropriate scope in a short amount of time, I think it's appropriate for us to confer. I'd like to confer with our city engineer, our public works director, and either the mayor and mayor pro tem or two designated council members to bring back some options and or recommendations on moving forward. And I think there also is a need likely to bring back a report on project implications so that you have clarity on funding issues, options down the road, timing, issues like that. And in reference to a concept of either referral to the Traffic Safety Committee or development of an RFP, those are items that I think can come back in some formal recommendation to you with the assistance of two of our members of the council. If I think there's a formal and an informal way of bringing this back. So if it's informal, we're not really formally creating an ad hoc. It would be something we confer over the next several couple weeks and bring back at some future council meeting. And that can also include a designation of a formal ad hoc, or it can be more informal. So we can bring back some thinking on that. And then earlier in the evening, there was a reference to a potential tie to the triangle and looking at this from a holistic standpoint. And so I want to make sure that for the record, we reflect the fact that that would be part of the discussion that we would want to recommend, is that whatever we're doing in one location, at least acknowledge and think about the implications on the triangle as well. So my recommendation would be to have the council designate two council members to work with the staff and bring back some recommendations and information about the project implications that would be helpful for the next round of review on options to address the existing conditions and attempt to improve those.
Mark, could I also ask that you might include at least the consideration of some focus groups or some way of getting some residential input from various demographics of the community?
What may be helpful is to have that, whatever comes back from this working group to develop recommendations could be some recommendations specifically related to community engagement and or layers of community engagement. So focus groups could be one of those elements.
All right, thank you.
Do you need formal motions to make these couple of significant changes?
At least nods from 3 or more of you.
I think we have a consensus there, and I think
we
need to let them go, staff go away and think about what the next steps are, and not just try to do that on the fly. And so I think we're all in agreement with what you summarized, right?
So what would be helpful to know is should staff work with the mayor and the mayor pro tem to bring back a report at a future council meeting? Our next formal council meeting is September 13th.
I was going to suggest maybe I've got enough on my plate that maybe council
Your
member
plate isn't anywhere near full. Are you kidding me?
maybe council member Kemps and Mayor Losey could do that.
Okay.
Fine by me.
All right.
I'll support that.
Don, are you okay with that?
Peachy keen.
Okay.
With the understanding that you'll
We'll
be
do
okay
that.
with a C?
To figure out how to move forward. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Do we need to make any formal or informal designations or contact with either the COG or the county that indicates that we are no longer proceeding with a roundabout?
Your direction will be communicated to the COG.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Good.
COG connects to the county and the COG gets the funding via the county, they'll know.
Yep.
Staff direction, or do we actually need a formal motion, city attorney?
Sorry, just to be clear, tonight the council isn't voting on whether to terminate the project or not, or whether to go forward with the roundabout or not, but it's to work.
Actually, I don't think that's true.
We're asking for that.
Well,
We know.
Hold on.
We know. Hang on.
I understand, but the way that this meeting was noticed, any sort of action like that is not within the scope of what the Brown Act permits. What was discussed, my understanding of what was discussed would be staff would bring back a number of items to the council, and the council would then consider those items at a future meeting in which this is agendized, and then the council, once it's properly agendized, could discuss.
Yeah.
Hold on. So let me clarify the question. Are you stating that under the Brown Act, we do not have the right in this meeting with the way that it was noticed to make a motion to that effect?
Correct. So tonight, the council could not decide whether or not it wishes to continue with the roundabout project.
Okay, let the community just understand that it's simply a formality and that when the information comes to us, that that is our intent and that we will not change it.
So at the
Has to be
Well,
agendized
that's one
in a future
person.
meeting.
right, it has to be set for an agenda
Right.
at a future meeting in which this item, or if there's multiple items, could be discussed.
Right. So it was agendized as review and discuss.
Correct.
And then we've given direction, the city manager summarized, I think we're all in agreement on the direction we've given him and told him to come back to the next meeting where then it would be agendized in a way to vote on the path forward.
That's correct,
Is that
Mayor.
correct?
Yes.
So to assist, the direction provided to the city manager will be to include on the next agenda a formal discontinuation of the roundabout design for this project, and then a report back on recommendations related to the project implications, recommendations for community engagement, and other approaches to addressing intersection improvements with the assistance of Councilmember Kemps and Mayor Losey.
Yep. Do you guys
And that
agree on
meeting is, the next available meeting is September 13th.
It'll have to
Our
be
reports
13th.
internally, our process is that these reports are due Thursday internally.
So it might be the 28th.
So
It might be the
it would be helpful to have at least some flexibility.
27th.
But I would work as hard as we can to get it on the 13th or the 27th.
Yeah.
Here's my question. My question, though, is if council's not officially, according to the Brown Act, not out of lack of desire, is not officially canceling, how do we make sure we don't keep incurring costs from the consultant?
So staff can work with MBI and work together to essentially suspend the project at this point.
Yep. Okay. Did we capture it? Satisfied? Did we capture it?
I believe so.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Again, thank you everyone for attending the meeting. We do appreciate it, even everybody who stayed till the bitter end here. It's a much smaller crowd now, but thank you. And it is, what time is it? It is 8:55 and we are adjourned. Thanks.